Joe, there's two musicians that you play with, and I've heard your nonet, and I think I was in Orvieto. I heard your nonet when I was there with Denny Zeitlin.
Ah, yeah.
And but there's two people that you play with that I feel is the epitome of listening and responding creatively to what you hear with good manners. And that's with two guitarists. You know who I'm talking about, Friesen and Sko, you know.
Yeah.
You probably feel the same way, right?
Well, for sure, man. We've both Bill and John and I met in the early 70s in Boston at the Berklee College of Music, right? I went, we were there during that same time. Like I was there in 1971 and 2, and so was Sko, and then Bill came right around that time as well, maybe a year later or something, but we started to play together and know each other at that time, right?
Yeah.
And different things happened. We moved to New York. John and I both moved to New York around the same time, 1976, 75, and 76, and started to play and get some gigs and do some things, not together, but on the scene, you know. Bill ended up going to Europe and then coming back in the early 80s when we both started to play with Paul Motion. And Bill and I, from 1981 till Paul's passing in 2011, were a part of the Paul Motion bands, quintets, and the trio.
The trio with you, Friesen and Paul. I remember I was in Cologne. Caught you guys when I was on tour over there, and I caught you one night at, I forget the name of the place. You probably remember. It's a well-known jazz club there. It was extraordinary group. There's no bass player, but you didn't need a bass player. We just get in the way.
The idea of the trio kind of created that trio triangle language together and dialogue, and it gave Bill an opportunity to develop some different ways of playing and developing in the pedals and the different tones that he could sustain. And it gave me an opportunity also to accompany and be inside the music in a way of not just being the preacher or, you know, the lead voice all the time. It gave me a chance to get inside the music and take the role where a bass player might play some things and create some ideas inside. With that space there, it gave us an opportunity to develop a real approach.
It just doesn't happen with all musicians. This is this is a gift. It's nothing you can learn in school, how to make things like this happen, you know.
Right.
I remember you told me
a lot of that had to do with Paul's approach. Like even with the Bill Evans trio with Scott LaFaro, the way Paul played, it gave Scott LaFaro a chance to not just be the bass player, you know, in an accompanying role,
right?
You know, and I found myself emulating that idea that was happening with the Bill Evans trio, but I was taking the role of Scott in a certain way. That idea came to mind for me, and it's developed into my trio tapestry group today with Marilyn Crispell on piano and Carmen Castaldi on drums, who's a beautiful musician that I grew up with in Cleveland and is so creative in his approach. He doesn't just play the drums, he's totally in the music, you know, and creating the momentum, but not having that momentum be something that we just play on top of. Like,
right.
you know, the momentum's all about the melody and the harmonic rhythm and how we can interpret things together.
Right.
And, playing with Paul and Bill definitely for me was an amazing discovery and joyous music, you know.
You know, one of my favorite albums you did was the album entitled, it was Paul's album called Bill Evans. And I remember you telling me in Orvieto, we talked about it, and you said it was like, everything was like first take, right? Almost? You
Yeah,
went in and did it and left.
And Mark Johnson played with us on
Right,
that session.
exactly.
And was also a part of the first quartet moment. Then when I first went to Paul's pad and played with Bill, Mark was playing bass with us. And it was a quartet for a short moment of just rehearsals, really. And then Mark got called. He got the gig with Stan Getz, which Stan had a lot of work, and Paul didn't have any gigs.
Right.
Yeah, you know, he was just trying to formulate an approach and a concept in a band, and so then Mark went with Stan. That opened the door for Ed Schuler to come and be a part of the group with Paul. That eventually emerged into the trio by 1984 or something.
Wasn't Paul great to play with?
Oh man, he was so much fun.
Yeah.
So like swinging and creative every moment.
You know, Paul, this it was my senior moment here, but in New York, Paul and I and Charles Brackeen had a little trio.
Right.
You remember Charlie Brackeen?
I love. Well, that was the trio that Paul had right before Bill and I started to play with him.
Yeah.
With Charles and yourself and David Eisenson and I think JF Jenny Clark might have played some.
Jenny, yeah.
Yeah, but that music was beautiful, man, and you fit in so great with Charles and Paul. I love the way Charles played, man. The soprano and his approach in the music.
Yeah.
Very poetic, very poetic. You know?
Who would you, Joe, who would you say, I know you talked about your dad and your uncle, and as a young man growing up, of course, you're influenced by them. But other than your family, your father, and that situation, who would you say your main influences were?
You know, I think like
besides me.
You know, on record, there was a lot of influences. People that really influenced me were cats that I played with on the tenor saxophone. Even more, you know. I mean, of course, you know, you're listening to Sonny Stitt and Sonny Rollins and Coltrane and Cannonball Adderley and Eric Dolphy and Coleman Hawkins and Ben Webster, you know, and the master musicians that you encounter in your listening.
Right.
Major influences, all of them, you know. But then when I started to really play with other great saxophone players, David Young was a tenor player, played with George Russell. We played together with brother Jack McDuff in a saxophone section type band in 1975, you know. David, he was in George Russell's band in the early 60s and was an incredible saxophone player from Indianapolis. Playing with him, standing toe-to-toe with him, with beautiful. Frank Tiberi with the Woody Herman Band. I joined Woody's band in 1976. I was 23. And playing with Frank every night. He was from Philly and grew up around Coltrane and everybody, you know, and in Philly, and had a lot of private tapes of Coltrane that we listened to. And just his approach on the saxophone was so beautiful and flowing, and had a real amazing harmonic approach within the giant steps kind of concept of, you know, thirds, you know. So it was not only the cycle of fourths and fifths. Now he introduced me to a way of maneuvering through cycles in thirds, you know, and different modulations, like within the key you're in, you know. And Frank Tiberi, man, major influence and someone that's still with us today. He's in his early 90s, you know, and he teaches, he's up in Boston doing a few little things at Berklee himself too, inspiring all kinds of folks, you know.
When you were in Woody's band, was Gary Barone or John Gross in those?
They were there. They were there before me, I think.
Before you, okay.
Yeah. When I joined the band was Woody's 40th anniversary year. And all right, 1976. And that November, we played a concert at Carnegie Hall. And our band played all the parts. But the concert featured Stan Getz, Al Cohn, Zoot Sims, Flip Phillips, Jimmy Giuffre, you know, plus the Condoli brothers and a whole host of stars from Woody's life, you know. But man, you know, meeting all those cats at that moment and having their embrace was an incredible springboard for me, you know. I had to go to the front mic and play my part with Stan Getz playing lead on Early Autumn, you know. And I didn't just go up there and blow my notes, you know, play my part. I tried to blend with him, and because I had experience playing with other saxophone players, especially my dad, you know, and his crowd, about trying to blend and getting back to breathing and trying to breathe together and of course play the notes, but do something with those notes. That taught me a lot, you know.
Hopefully Stan appreciated that.
Well, you know, I felt that he did.
Good.
I felt that he did. And reflecting on it now, that was like a really proud moment where I was just on the band. I was the youngest cat on the band at that time. And I think having Woody's embrace from that moment on also was something really incredible for me. You know?
What's in the future for you? What goals have you set for yourself now at this point? Projects, things like that.
Well, you know, during this period of this whole last year and a half now, I've been trying to write a lot of ideas out, you know, that have started to turn into compositions. And I want to emerge from this period in this fall and into the near future with a whole new repertoire of music for some different ensembles, you know, for my trio with Marilyn and Carmen,
right.
But also I have a quintet called Sound Prince with Dave Douglas. Lawrence Fields plays piano, Linda Mahon O's on bass, and Joey Barron on drums. And we have a new release that just came out called Other Worlds that was recorded right before the pandemic, like the end of January of 2020. So that was just released, you know, maybe 2 months ago. And there's things happening next year with that group. So there's new material that I'm working on for that, you know, and also living inside the music that we have just documented too, to develop it more, you know.
Right.
I'm doing a project. I've been playing a lot with Chucho Valdez through the years in different duets and quintet settings. And we had a bunch of concerts that just went away in 2020, playing duets with Diane Reeves. So Diane is singing duo with Chucho. I'm playing duets with him, and then we're going to play trio moments. Oh. So there's a bunch of dates coming up starting in October through the year and into next year with that setting, which is amazing. It's so really different and fun, man, because Chucho is such a virtuoso on the piano, but musically he's so diverse and free, and the repertoire that we're going to develop, I think, is going to be really special. Well, playing famous music as well as some original things, you know.
Yeah, I hope it happens. I mean, I have a European tour planned for March of 2022. It's all done, ready to go. but you know,
Yeah, we're not sure.
it's so ambiguous right now at this point with
I
people's
have things.
fears about.
Yeah, I have things this fall. I did a recording with the Marcin Wasilewski. I don't know if you know his name. He was
Oh, from Poland.
from Poland. Yeah, his trio, which was called the acoustic trio, that was Thomas Stanko's rhythm section for quite some time. You know, I collaborated with them, and there's an ECM recording that came out called Arctic Riff. With his trio and myself. You know, we have a scheduled tour in November that really took a lot of beautiful shapes, but I'm not sure it could all go down the way it looks. It looks great on paper, but I think it's, you know, things are going to start to unravel more this fall, and 2022 and 23 are going to start to really feel like we could get out there and not only play, but to have an audience that feels comfortable about it.
There you go.
You know,
You
New
know,
York City too, you know, without any kind of tourists coming in and out, the clubs are slowly starting to do some things. I have 2 nights at the Blue Note, July 28 and 9. They're starting to do some live things, but I'm not sure if it's going to be full capacity or not.
right.
But I have 2 nights. That's going to be the first time I'm going to play for some folks.
Well, that sounds good. I'll make sure Natasha send her, when she emails you, send her this information and she'll broadcast it on this. Do you remember when we first met?
You know, I think it was in sometime in the early 80s, right?
It was in Cincinnati.
Ah,
at the original
what, the Blue
Wisp,
Wisp?
the Blue Wisp, and Paul, the owner.
Yeah. So that could have been late 70s.
I think you were sitting in, and John Stoll and I were on tour at that time. And we just finished a concert, and we were leaving the next day, and we went to the Wisp, and I think you were just sitting in at that time.
Well, I started to go there when I left Woody's band in '79. The Blue Wisp was one of the clubs that I would go to as a soloist. Like, you know, one thing about saxophone players through the years,
the original Wisp, the original
club. And I remember Paul, and then his wife took the place over,
right?
Because John Von Olen, the drummer at that club, it was his house trio, and John knew me from Woody's band. So he kind of brought me there the first time I went, you know, and to play a weekend. It was a Friday, Saturday kind of a thing where soloists would come in and play with his trio, you know. And yeah, so that's when we met during that time.
During that time. It was in the 70s because that's when I was in New York. It was in the 70s.
That was one of the clubs. There was a club in Pittsburgh. There was clubs that like Bob Berg and different folks would go as a soloist and play. And Blue Wisp was one of those places. You know? Yeah. It lasted a little while. It lasted into the late 80s, actually.
It did.
Yeah.
You know, we could go on and on, but we got to kind of conclude the interview, which I've enjoyed very, very much.
Yeah, David.
I ask all my guests to end the interview with some words of hope and encouragement for people in the world today who are going through a lot of problems. We look at what happened in Florida here with this apartment crashing down. The Czech Republic just had a massive tornado sweep through the country. It hasn't happened. I mean, nothing like this has ever happened before. Killed many people. There's a lot of, you know, misconceptions and fears about this pandemic, and so people are going through difficult times right now. And just any words of hope or encouragement you could offer?
Well, you know, it's a difficult time, and it's always a difficult time throughout history. There's always been so much natural things that have happened that have changed everybody's lives. You know, I think we have to really learn more from those experiences and embrace each other, you know, to live all as one on this planet together, you know, with respect and gratitude and compassion.
Yeah.
And we as musicians are really fortunate to be able to express ourselves through music that bring people together. I want to live that kind of life, you know, humanity, and to be a humanitarian and to help with all of these things that are going on in the social world that we live in, you know. But I feel like to really embrace each other more is my goal, you know, as a musician and just as in humankind, you know.
Yeah, those are beautiful words. Those are beautiful words, Joe.
Wow. Thank you, David. And I know you're feeling those same things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
yeah, the way we travel internationally and have an understanding of all these cultural, beautiful things that happen on the planet throughout the centuries, man, to really express ourselves with music and with that awareness of what's around you, and not just have it be a commercial thing, you know, or an exercise.
Yeah, of course, of course, of course. Sit tight, if you would. I have a question for you after I conclude this, if you would wait just one moment. Listen, folks out there, I wish you all well. Please stay healthy. Please check out my jazz education e-shop, www.davidfriesenjazzeducation.net. And I think you'll find some unusual ways of approaching the music, and from my perspective anyways. And listen, stay well, stay healthy, and God bless you all. And Joe, once again, thank you so much for doing this interview. What a pleasure to for you to take time to share with us all this great information, man.
Thank you, David. Beautiful, man. Good luck with everything that you're doing. And yes, stay healthy and positive in your directions.
Thank you very much, man.
Mm-hmm.